Hey Stitch family, it's Andrew here with another community update. This one should be pretty short. We've got a whole lot of new exciting features coming and we're going to be announcing in the next few weeks. So I wanted to get this one out quickly. We rolled out a feature just about a week and a half ago related to improving the response rates that you get when you send a message to someone else in the community. Now, there's one of our themes. We've got a few themes for the next few months: building new communities, getting more people connected. It's all related to connections. But this one is related to when you send a message to someone for the first time. We call that a connection request. You're really just sending them a message. And one of the principles that, I would love people to kind of adhere to is it's just, you don't have to want to be part of a conversation with everybody, but it is actually reasonably polite to respond, even if you just say thanks but no thanks. That's one of the principles. I try to respond to messages, even if I can't necessarily help someone with a message they send. I always try to do it just so that they've received your message. Turns out a lot of people don't necessarily do that, and it can get a little bit frustrating, particularly if you're in a new area and you're trying to get connected or get people enthusiastic about starting the community, getting some activities happening, things like that. There are a bunch of reasons why people don't respond. In some cases, it turns out a lot of people miss seeing the email notification, or they are just not, they're not engaged. They're traveling at the moment, and a few other reasons. There's lots of reasons. But we are in the process of making it, number one, making it easier for people to respond, so you're more likely to get a response. Number two, making it clear who are the sort of people who are likely to give you a response, so you can focus your energies on where it might be most effective. And eventually, over time, people who consistently don't respond, will be putting them into another part of the community. It's always going to be there for them to join in if they want to, but just maybe they'll be kind of just on the membership page. We might indicate them a little bit differently so that you don't have to spend your time on people who might be disengaged or so on. As I said, there's a lot of reasons why people might at some period be engaged and interested in the community, but a year or two later they're not so active or involved anymore, and so we're working on that. So one of the things that we rolled out as a first step along this way is to give you some indication of if someone's likely to respond, and that's based on their track record ever since they've been a member, but primarily over the last couple of years. Depends how long you've been a member, of course, with a focus mostly on the recent responses. But it really depends a little bit. So someone might be super responsive consistently, and then they go on holidays and they forget to check their Stitch emails for a few weeks. So we don't want to classify them as completely unresponsive, but we also do need to indicate to people if someone was active and then they stopped being active or stopped being responsive, then we give you some kind of indication. So you may or may not have seen, if you go to the Stitch members page and you click on a profile, or you click on anyone's profile in the community and you're not connected with them, you'll see a little indication, a little bit like this at the top of the page. It just indicates, is this person, do they usually, or do they almost always respond to the connection requests they receive? Don't want you to worry. It doesn't mean you have to respond instantly. I had a Stitch welcome event last night and people were saying, well, what if I'm busy or at work and I can't respond? It doesn't need to be an instant response. But what Stitch is doing is it's looking at whether you respond to that message in some way within 7 days. Yeah, so we think 7 days is a pretty reasonable time. And if you're the one sending the message and you're waiting to see if you get a response, you don't get a response in 7 days. You pretty much, it feels pretty crummy. I mean, it feels like you haven't got a response, right? So that's what we're using, 7 days. And then Stitch basically looks at, well, what percentage of messages do you receive that you respond to within 7 days? And based on some super duper algorithm, it comes up with a thing to say whether you basically almost always respond. If you always respond, it'll still say almost always respond, because there might be one that time when you're sick or whatever, but almost always respond. Sometimes you might see something like this, which is where someone might usually respond. And that means you've got a pretty fair chance that they're going to be responding to the connection request you send, but it'll be great to see them a little bit more responsive. Sometimes they only occasionally respond to messages, and this means that you're likely to get a response, but it still might be less than 50% or around that 50% mark. And then we also have people who very rarely respond to messages and will indicate that. Now, it's really important to note, we used to get asked, can you please show when someone was recently online or active on the community? And we do that, but only if we don't know enough about how responsive they are. So, and the reason for that is we have a lot of people who might not actually log into Stitch every day. Believe it or not, some people don't log into Stitch every day. But when they do receive a message, they do respond. So it doesn't really matter whether you've been online in the last 24 hours or week or so on. It's just if you're the sort of person who, when you receive a message, you're likely to respond, that's what you need to know. But yeah, you will see things like this on someone's profile, active today, active this week, that sort of thing, to give you a sense of how recently active they've been, and will also indicate if they haven't been active at all. And that's when we don't know whether they're likely to respond or not, because we just don't have enough information. So that's kind of how it works. Just wanted to explain it to you, but also really just comment on the thinking behind this. And for you want to think about it from two perspectives. One is, if you're the sort of person who sends messages, this helps you kind of focus your energy on people who are most likely to respond. And if someone's not going to respond, then you still send them a message by all means. I think it's great, because sometimes people finally get engaged in the community because they received a really nice message. But you might not be surprised that some people are just not particularly responsive. That's just the way they are. Other people are going to be very responsive, so put your energies into that basket. The other thing to bear in mind is, if you receive a message from someone, your own rating is going to be affected if you just ignore it. Okay? So whenever you can, we would say you need to send a message to say, thanks, I want to continue the conversation, or thanks but no thanks. Or if it's an inappropriate comment, or the sort of message you really don't want to receive, we want you to flag that for us. We want you to mark it, give us some feedback about that communication, because there's no place for inappropriate communications inside Stitch. And if people just ignore it, then it means that person might be doing it again and again to other people. So you can do your tiny, tiny little bit just to flag it as inappropriate and unwelcome if it doesn't comply, or it's not consistent with the sort of values and behaviors that we expect on Stitch. If you're not sure what those values are, just go check out the community guidelines at the Help Center. Or, if you click on someone's profile in a conversation and you click that tell me about this, the button that says rate your interaction with the member, you'll get to see the behaviors we're looking for. They're friendly, kind, welcoming, supportive. Basically they're positive. They don't need to be your best friend, but they need to behave positively towards you. If they're not any of those things, if they're rude, obnoxious, bullying, anything like that, we want to know, because that sort of behavior is just not welcome in Stitch, and we can actually give them a warning, give them a suspension, if enough people say the same things. Anyway, so for you, none of those things apply, right? Because you're a fantastic person. You would never do anything that's inappropriate, but you might sometimes just ignore a message. We would love you to get in the mindset of just giving someone that feedback that you saw the message, thanks. Maybe you'll check into they invited you to an event, you might have to check into it, or maybe it's not my cup of tea or whatever. Just say something. In the next few weeks, we'll be rolling out a new feature that makes it easier to do that, for you to accept or decline some of those messages. So keep a lookout for that. It will all feed into creating and rewarding the people who are engaged and behaving politely and positively to each other, but also helping us on the Stitch side detect people who maybe don't fit the typical profile for Stitch, and either giving them a warning or getting them out of the community. So you can do your part to help us do that. So please give us your feedback. Look out for the new features as they come along, and remember, it's all designed to increase your engagement or your enjoyment of the community, because we don't want you sending messages and people just not responding. And unfortunately, a lot of people that's what they do. It makes you feel bad. It's nothing about you. It's more they're the issue. So we're trying to get people to change, and this is part of that. Hope that helps. Give us your feedback if you're interested in giving more advice for what we should do. This is something that we've been asked for from members for a while, so we're in the process of rolling it out. If you've got any questions, send them through to Stitch Support, and stay safe, stay happy till the next time, and I'll see you at the next community update. Bye for now.